All right.
Good afternoon. This is the meeting of the Mobile City Planning Commission for Thursday, October 21st, 2021. General procedures for this remote meeting are as follows. I will announce an application for items where no one from the public is attending via Zoom. Staff will give an overview, including any comments received from the public. If a member of the public will attend the meeting, staff will announce their attendance and admit them at that time. Once the parties have joined the meeting, if needed, I will state the commission's rules regarding the number of speakers as well as speaking time. Each application is limited to a maximum of 4 speakers in support and 4 speakers in opposition, limited to 5 minutes each. I will then announce the beginning of the public hearing. The applicant will present their case and up to 3 additional speakers if applicable. For each speaker, at the end of their presentation, I will ask if there are any questions from any commissioners. Once the commission concludes their questions of the speakers in support of the application, I will then call for interested parties to speak. At the end of each speaker's presentation, I will again ask if there are any questions from the commission. The applicant will be given an opportunity to rebut in accordance with the commission rules, 2 minutes. After the rebuttal, I will declare the public hearing closed and the commission will go into the deliberation session. After the commission has rendered a decision, the applicant and concerned parties will leave the meeting or will be sent back to the waiting room by staff where they can disconnect. I will then call the next agenda item. Commission members and staff, please remember to keep your microphone on mute unless you are speaking to the meeting attendees. I'll now go through the roll call. Myself present, Mr. Alan Cameron.
Here.
Ms. Jennifer Denson.
Here.
Mr. Carlos Grant.
Here.
Oh, there. Ms. Shirley Sessions. Mr. Taylor Atchison.
Here.
Mr. Matt Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Nick Amberger.
Here.
Ms. Bess Rich.
Here.
Ms. Susan Carley. Mr. Kirk Matei.
Here.
We have a quorum and I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda for October 21st.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item number 1 on the agenda, been notified by staff that it has been withdrawn. Can we get confirmation?
That is correct. It has been withdrawn. Those who had planned to attend to voice their concerns have been notified. No action is needed.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, extension 1721 and 1725 Spring Hill Avenue. It is recommended for an extension of the PUD to be approved for 1 year, and the applicant should be advised that any future extensions will be unlikely. We'll need to recuse Mr. Kirk Matei from this item.
Mr. Chairman, I have admitted Spencer Cooper into the meeting who is available for questions. We have no one in opposition and have not received any correspondence with anyone stating any concerns.
Mr. Cooper, are you available to ask? Are you on the call to ask any questions? Are you in agreement with the staff recommendation?
Hey, this is Spencer Cooper, Matt Rogers with Spencer. By the time we got the audio set up, we missed what the recommendation was.
I'll repeat it. Staff has recommended that the request for the 1-year extension of the PUD has been approved and that the applicant should be advised that any further extensions will be unlikely.
Yeah, we're good with that.
All right. Any comments or questions from commissioners? Seeing none, I'll call number 2 for a motion.
Motion to extend for the year.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Cooper. New subdivision applications. Item number 3, northeast corner of Halls Mill Road and Riviera Duchesne Road, extending to the northwest corner of McKinnon Industrial Parkway and Sheldon Way. The staff has recommended tentative approval, subject to 11 conditions. Ms. Pappas, is the applicant
Yes,
available?
sir. I've admitted Jerry Byrd into the meeting. He's available for any questions.
Good
Yes.
afternoon, Mr. Byrd.
How you doing?
Doing great.
Happy with everything except a question on number 9, condition 9, where traffic is saying that curb cuts be approved by AlDOT and traffic engineering. I don't know why AlDOT is involved. The staff report didn't say anything about it being any of the streets being state controlled. I mean, I don't mind if they are, that's fine. If AlDOT is not concerned, I don't want it to be mandatory to be approved by AlDOT.
Ms. Pappas, any comments, or is traffic available?
Traffic is in the meeting. Ms. Bergen, if you're available, I'm not sure if possibly staff did an erroneous copy and paste into the report, but I will let Ms. Bergen speak as the traffic engineer. Mary Beth, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, Mr. Byrd, can you repeat your question? I was running down the hallway. Oh, I've got 2 meetings going at the same time. You had a question about the curb cuts?
I'll repeat it for him. On condition
Thank you.
number 9, he was wondering why AlDOT was involved since it wasn't a state highway.
It is not a state highway and AlDOT should not be involved. It was an error in the staff report and likely because my comments to the staff were tardy. And so it was just an error. So AlDOT is not involved in this review.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
So when
you.
we entertain a motion, we'll amend the condition number 9. Any further comments or commissioner questions? Seeing none, we'll bring item number 3. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve, subject to staff recommendations, modifying note number 9 and removing the reference to AlDOT.
Second.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Byrd.
Thank you.
New rezoning applications. Item number 4, 4459 Government Boulevard. Staff has recommended approval with a condition and a rezoning with conditions. Also, yep, we're seeing that we have the applicant available.
Mr. Chairman, I have admitted Mr. John Delchamps and Mr. and Mrs. James Devery into the meeting.
Mr. Delchamps, are you available to be with us today?
They're still connecting to audio, both of
Okay.
them.
We'll give them a few seconds.
Ms. Pappas, do you see John Arrington as well? He's here for this application too.
I do, but he was not registered.
Okay, well, I apologize. He came to our office and so he set up down the hallway at another computer. He said he had 2 questions. I don't know what I can do
Okay.
for that, if anything.
Okay, I'll admit him.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I know he came by the office a couple of times with questions.
Okay, I'm admitting him into the meeting. Mr. and Ms. Devery appear to be connected to audio now. Mr. Delshamps is still not connecting. It's via
How
the
about-
iPhone.
Margaret, I'm here with the Deverys.
Yay, awesome. So, Mr. Chairman, we have Mr. John Delshamps and Mr. and Ms. James Devery admitted into the meeting in support, and Mr. Arrington is in the meeting in opposition.
Mr. Delshamps, Mr. and Ms. Devery, staff has recommended the application for approval, subject to there have been changing conditions within the area that would make reclassification of the land necessary and desirable. And then you have rezoning with conditions. Have you been able to review those?
Yes,
Any comments or questions for staff?
no,
So you're in agreement.
we accept their recommendations.
All right. Any comments or questions from commissioners? All right, Mr. Arrington.
Mr. Arrington's on mute. I'm hoping Mary Beth can run down the hall and assist him.
Looks like he's off now.
Can you hear us okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm turning it over to Mr. Arrington and I'll be down the hall. There you go, sir.
Good
Yes,
afternoon, Mr. Arrington.
I'm the second house on that, in that.
Yes, sir. State your name and address, sir.
Sir,
Please state your name and address for the record, and then you can ask your
John
question.
Arrington, 1614 Rochelle.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Go ahead with your questions.
And the question is how he's gonna access that and who is going in there.
It'll be accessed from the service road. There's a service road stops at the edge of the property and it's gonna go in right there.
It dead ends right there.
Right,
And Mr. Shaw out to the state says they can't go in there without going through them.
right. They're gonna go through them. It'll be all planned out.
That's what I say. There's a lot down the street there that they bought and was gonna cut a road through there and the city wouldn't let them. On account of they dumping a trailer park on the little busy street.
Well, I mean, I've talked to AllDOT, who is in control of that service road, and they said that obviously going through them and their, whatever their requirements, that we're just going to extend in not very far and have access into the lot from the service road that's existing.
Yeah, it don't need to go in but 25 feet.
Now, that is okay, but what is gonna occupy that section of land?
They,
Because
paint,
Right
Arkansas
now-
Paint Body Shop.
right now, they're using this for a cut through off of Halls Mill Road. And we have 1,000 cars a day going through that little road. And this switchback up here, come off of Highway 90 on the Rochelle onto the little dead end street.
Yeah, we're not gonna cut through back there. We're just gonna come through the front.
But I'm looking at the traffic this is gonna come in because I'm the second house behind this restaurant.
We're gonna have zero traffic on Rochelle Road.
You're gonna have it,
Zero
They
traffic going
they're
down.
using this for a cut through off of
That
Hall
might
Mill.
be somebody
through
else,
here,
but that's not us.
And they occupy this side here, they coming through, going through here and circling around this little loop.
All right, Mr. Arrington,
Yes, sir.
the applicant has stated that they are going to access through the service road about 25 feet and that there will be no traffic on Rochelle Road. Does that satisfy your first question?
Well, but it will dead it, it puts the traffic in here, making a sharp turn coming in behind the restaurant. And these people come in now in the afternoon and morning. They come off of Demetropolis Road, come around there, and it's a weird thing. And it's right now, there's a traffic problem. And add this thing in and there's more traffic problem.
I'm going to ask staff if they have any insight from traffic with respect to this application.
I haven't had the opportunity to confirm with the DOT what they would or would not allow for this site. But we would absolutely do that prior to approving any land disturbing permits for the project, because we would have to know whether or not the access was granted, because then we would have to look at having to grant access on to Demetropolis. It's very possible that the DOT is already aware. What I believe what Mr. Arrington is kind of referring to is the offset intersection from Rochelle and the opening to the main line of from the service road, and the concern for how that interacts. And that may be something that that the DOT has a plan to improve or change, but that does all fall into the DOT's purview to require changes or require improvements, additional striping if that's needed, or stop signs, however that will work.
What happens, Mary Beth, is they come off of Rochelle Street, and there's a gas station across Highway 90 there, and they go across to they go across all the way across Highway 90 and loop around the service road on this side, and they have wrecks galore right there. That entrance for the to that service station.
Mm-hmm. I do not doubt that at all. I know that the DOT has looked at some access management. I don't know of anything very specific at this location, but they've done some similar things along the corridor and other places. They could look at closing the access or modifying the access in the median of government to only allow lefts in a certain direction or not allow them at all. But I completely understand what he's talking about. I know part of the problem lies with Demetropolis and its interaction with government and Halls Mill and all of that. Hopefully what the city's plan to improve the intersection of Halls Mill and Demetropolis will make that intersection more attractive to drive through, so folks won't want to cut through on Rochelle to avoid that intersection and avoid government and Demetropolis as well. So I know we're working on improvements with the DOT at government and Demetropolis to maybe do some improvements with the traffic signal to make that work better. While we were out there looking at how it's aligned and if there's improvements that can be made there, and if there's some bigger thing, it would stretch out and it would look at the openings that are right there close to it and how the access could be improved to make it safer in that area.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Mr. Arrington, stay on because I know you had another question, but while we're on the matter of traffic, I'm going to ask staff if that has any bearing on the application as it stands.
Yes, sir.
The
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit deaf.
Yeah, so that's okay, Mr. Arrington. What I was asking is for staff to make comment on your specific traffic question if it has bearing on the application as it stands today, even with Mary Beth's explanation. And I know you have another question, so I'm asking staff about the traffic and the application.
The second question was about what type of business is going into there.
Mr. Deschamps and Mr. Miss Debris, what the type of business, will you repeat that?
Auto body repair.
Auto body repair, Mr. Arrington.
Okay, well, I see auto body repair is a traffic flow problem. They were gonna put in a movable building or storage building place in there, and they couldn't figure a way to get off of the highway with that big trailer to come in there. there's a traffic problem. Today, there's a traffic problem. If they put that in there, it's gonna be, and off of that little road, that service road, it's gonna be a bigger traffic problem.
All right, Mr. Arrington, I'm gonna pause you for just a second and see if there's any comments or questions from the commissioners for you. Seeing none.
What, can I ask a question? It's not to Mr. Arrington. You said we would ask questions to Mr. Arrington? Because I have a question to Mary Beth, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
we'll open it up for
It
questions
involves
too.
this issue,
Yes.
the traffic issue. I wanted to make sure I understood what she said about getting with AlDOT, since I take it the service road is not a city program. Am I correct about that?
Yes, ma'am,
That
that's
he's
correct.
planning on extending. So before any land disturbance, all that would be worked out and known. And if there is no proper access from that service road, does that move up to council? So you know all that beforehand on the zoning change and what the intended use will be? Or is that, I mean, is that administratively handled until it's reviewed by council?
Typically, the access is tied more to the subdivision application. And so the restriction of one curb cut per street frontage as approved is a condition of the subdivision. So regardless of what the zoning is, it would be one curb cut per frontage as allowed.
Okay.
So it's not
so
technically a council issue.
Okay, all right, I understand that now. And the other access would be Demetropolis? Am I looking at that correctly? If let's just say that, for whatever reason, AlDOT says, no, we've got problems up there, we have known accidents, as Mr. Arrington has let us know, would their only access then be from Demetropolis?
Yes, if AlDOT denies them access to the service road, I have to give them access to Demetropolis. And that's
Right.
where the only one would be, and we would look at it being towards the southern portion of the property.
I see, okay. And how many feet are they extending down the service road to get into their property?
About 25 feet.
And so that other lot, and it's already constructed in front of what is that first lot on Rochelle, correct? Siding on Rochelle. Is the service road already there?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, because that's how they would get in. Okay, and another 25 feet. And where on Demetropolis are you contemplating your, I know it will be up to the traffic engineer, they'll guide you, but
We would have
where
to
are
get
you
traffic
thinking?
engineer.
So you don't have any placement at this point?
No, we do that according to whatever y'all want to do that.
Right, right. Would you be okay with just the one access on your lot? Or do you, are you requiring the one that comes off of the service road? That seems to be where most of the
Well,
problems are.
It's a lot more beneficial to come off that service road. It's a lot less traffic problems coming off the service road. It's already there, and all they do is turn in, and they're already on my property. As fast as they turn in that entrance, they're on the property. It can't get no better than that.
I see, okay. All right, thank you.
And nobody would have to do anything. Cities, county, state, nobody. I take care of all that cost.
They can't extend that thing on down on kind of like.
Mr.
down
Arrington,
Here on this, Demetropolis, they claim it to head on, butt heads, I call it, head on wrecks. If they
Mr.
come
Arrington.
down on-
Mr. Arrington, we have a limit on the time to speak. And I appreciate your concern, but we also have other items on the agenda, but traffic has indicated that, and based on the items in this recommendation for approval, they've got to be in full compliance with all the codes and ordinances, and they've got to get traffic approval. So I think this is moving down the right path. Do you understand that, Mr. Arrington?
Yes,
Okay. Do any of
Yes,
the commissioners have,
I fully understand that, where you're coming from.
Yes, sir. Do any commissioners have any further questions for this item?
No.
Seeing none, I will call the motion.
Move to approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion from commissioners?
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion, item number 4, passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Deschamps, Mr. Miss Devery, and Mr. Arrington. Item number 5, 1250 Woodland Avenue. Staff has recommended approval with conditions and rezoning with conditions. And I believe we have a recusal here with Mr. Kirk Matei.
Alan Cameron's recused.
2 recusals, Mr. Matei and Mr. Cameron for item number 5. And staff, by my count, that still keeps us at a quorum.
That is correct. And I have entered into the meeting Mr. Casey Pipes and Mr. Tommy Gleason, who are speaking in support, and Mr. Joe Womack and Mr. Ramsey Sprague regarding concerns.
All right. Mr. Pipes, Mr. Gleason, good afternoon. Item number 5 is recommended for approval. Have you received that report and are you in agreement?
Yes, Chairman, we're in agreement. We're here to answer questions. I apologize for the background noise. I'm in an airport right now.
Understood. Seeing that we have immediate good to go there, we'll move over to Mr. Womack.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. You can ask your questions and state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm retired Marine Major Joe Womack, Africa Town native, address 2016 Westmore Court, Mobile. Of course, I'm against the rezoning request. 2 months ago, we were right here at the Planning Commission, and I told you at that time we would be back in a few weeks doing the same thing if you approve their request for a zoning change. Well, you did, and here we are again. Now I would say the same thing again. If you approve this, we'll be back in a few months doing the same thing. Now, why am I saying this again, the exact same thing? Well, you have allowed them to go around a law that of community engagement. They've not had any community engagement concerning this rezone. They put up signs, but they haven't had the community engagements. They haven't talked to the community about it. And practically with the COVID situation, no one getting out much, not many people know about this. We haven't had our a chance to talk to the people because they're not getting out. But you have allowed them to skirt the age-long rule of not going through the community before they come to you guys. They've done that in the past, and 7 out of 10 times the community go against them because they don't want industry all around them. Who does? Well, in a war, we would call this the Persian hour line, trying to find out the weakness. They started with the last meeting they had at the community at your planning commission, 3 miles up the road. Well, that was a spot that was zone residential, but it was around industry, so they wanted to rezone it. Well, at that time, you looked at the map, the planning, you guys, and said, well, that's 3 miles up the road. Well, it's not near houses, so we'll let them do it, and you let them do it. So now they're coming closer. You're allowing them to do something that we have not allowed them to do for years. Now, how did this all happen? Well, 100 years ago, they was able to do it. They were just moving the industry in there without getting a permit, without changing any laws, without rezoning. They just move it right next door to us. You are taking us back in Mobile back 100 years by allowing them to do this. Another reason why they're doing this is in a few weeks, we'll have 4 new city council. And when this stuff come up before the city council, these 4 new people are not gonna know what's going on. They're just gonna go around along with the rest of the people, and they're just gonna vote yes because everybody else vote yes. And they know that this is gonna happen. So we have no 4 new inexperienced city council to probably go along with what they're trying to do because they just don't know any better. You know, 100 years ago, businesses were able to come and build next to the community without any opposition. We had no representation. Now what we're trying to do is get the representation to look out for the people, not look out for the businesses. Like I told you all last time, there are numerous lots out of compliance within Africa Town. We know where they are and they know where they are. What I suggest you do is not approve this, but tell the 2 groups, the business people and the community to get together and look at these lots and let's figure out which one they should move and which one they shouldn't. You know, 2 years ago, the same lot that they're trying to get rezoned had a business on there, a business that has been there for over 20, 30 years on the same lot. And they tore the business down and now they want to rezone it because it's zoned residential. Well, it never should have been there in the first place. And they're coming closer and closer to our businesses. And that's something that some of you all don't know because you're not familiar with Africa Town. But if you've been on the planning commission long enough, you've seen this happen before. And they're going to do it more and more and more because you're giving them the privilege of doing it. How do you straighten this out? Get the community, we got several organizations, get them together with the business people. Let's sit down, let's look at these individual lots instead of allowing them to come back here every few weeks and try to change them one at a time. You know, it's time to stop this and force a collaboration. You know, this is not 1921, this is 2021. You know, it's time to stop treating Africa Town and Africa Town residents as if they just got off the Clotilda yesterday. Let's show the world that Mobile is a fair and progressive city, not a one-sided Mobile in a divided Mobile, but one Mobile that takes care of all its people. And it's gonna start with you guys. So they have to come to you first before they move on to the city council. And there, like I said, there are numerous spots. They know where they are. I can take you to them right now. If you give me a tour, I can take you on to every last one of them that are out of compliance with the city code. And we need to stop this as a proliferation of land because their plan don't agree with our plan. The world knows what our plan is. We're the place where the last shipment of slaves came. Our plan is to make money off tourism.
Time.
And that's what we need for you all to help us do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Womack. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Womack? Margaret, is there anyone else here in opposition?
Yes,
this
Mr. Ram,
application?
I'm sorry, Mr. Ramsey Sprague.
Yeah, good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Ramsey Sprague. I'm the president of the Mobile Environmental Justice Action Coalition, also known as MEJAC. MEJAC was founded over 8 years ago by Africa Town residents in partnership with Africa Town residential stakeholders and regional advocates to address environmental justice concerns in their community and across Mobile. I hope to appeal to a sense of reason about how we implement neighborhood planning best practices in the city, particularly in our most vulnerable communities. Since 2019, MEJAC and our partners have basically begged the administration repeatedly for some constructive and inclusive path forward for the high number of properties in non-conforming use that we've documented in writing and in detail within the Africa Town planning area. These are mostly, but not exclusively, R1 properties with current or previous non-conforming commercial uses. We suggested neighborhood meetings because, like we said then, due to the erosion that has been perpetrated upon the residential integrity of Africa Town, any loss of land zoned as residential makes many uncomfortable, regardless of reason. What we wish to avoid were nonstop adversarial public hearings, but here we are. No thanks to the landowner at 1250 Woodland, who is, unless the property has changed hands very recently, Mayer family real estate interests. And while most of the Chippewa Lakes LLC signage has disappeared from around the Africatown community, this has only heightened the awareness that the family's real estate interests might attempt a new maneuver. CRE Mobile signs have gone up in the wake of Chippewa signs, but we disagree that the vacant lot at 1250 Woodland warrants an I2 zoning designation. Much of our concerns over the last decade has been rooted in the fact that whether one is looking at the community on a zoning map or simply driving through the community, the extent of industrial blight and industrial overzoning is profoundly stigmatizing and depressing of the residential quality of life. Several of the neighboring warehouses that are in operation around this site are also currently in non-conforming use. The administration has been disinterested in affording any non-adversarial approach to resolving these. We believe that downzoning is the least to less intensive use in the Africatown planning area is fundamental to the revitalization of the residential integrity of the community. Consider the application before you. The applicant doesn't even mention Africatown at all. If you look at the CRE website for this property, they never mention Africatown either. You'll see them note, as they do in the application, that the property is fully within the Africatown planning area, that it's simply located, quote, in a highly industrial area. Occupied residencies are as close as 650 feet away in Pritchard and 2,200 feet away in Mobile. The applicant doesn't offer any specific use interests. The concerns they express about marketing the property when it's zoned residential doesn't speak to a simple mistake by map makers. It speaks to the gradual disintegration of residential integrity that was perpetrated upon the community by developers who have consistently behaved as if they were above the protections that zoning law promises to citizens of Mobile. The timing of this rezoning application, many believe, is rooted in the interests of completely avoiding looming neighborhood meeting requirements proposed in the UDC that this body passed. Denying this application today does not deny it tomorrow, but it would allow for the residential community to be more highly engaged with the process of development of its shared commercial interests, an imperative that the city of Mobile has recognized on paper for decades now. To be absolutely clear, we believe that where business interests demonstrate partnership with their neighbors, a balance of interests can be struck. But we get nowhere when commercial developers are rewarded in ways that are contrary to neighborhood plans that so clearly document a community's interest in having non-adversarial parity with its commercial neighbors in the eyes of city decision makers like this body. Thank you for considering our concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Sprague. Do any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Sprague?
I don't have any questions, necessarily questions. He might see them. I might be posing them as questions and ideas. I know, and we are all aware that the council seat is vacant right now. And of course, COVID, he's exactly correct, has made it very difficult for community meetings. And I know this board has often, the commission rather, has often championed the opportunity for citizens to have meetings, prior to final decisions. And I was wondering if the applicants were amenable to helping to achieve that goal. There'll be a brand new council person starting November 1st when they put their hand on the Bible. So there will be somebody to help bring the groups together that need to discuss this. And I would certainly say that had there been a council person there, I believe that my office, on behalf of them, because I am the planning commissioner for the council, would have asked that this slow down and a meeting take place. You've heard that from me a number of times since I've been in the seat on their behalf. So I'd like to hear that from the applicant, if that's possible. I know they're not speaking now, but that's something I believe very strongly in. I think the group that's advocating a process to sit down doesn't necessarily have to be on the books. We've been doing this for a while for communities that want to be at the table.
Before we get to the rebuttal period, I'm going to ask if any other commissioners have questions or comments for Mr. Sprague. All right, seeing none, Mr. Pipes and Mr. Gleason, there's a 2-minute rebuttal comment period.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Rich, I'd love to sit down and Mr. Sprague, Mr. Womack, we can talk offline and try to set up a meeting, whatever y'all think would be most appropriate. I've often, as people on this planning commission know, voluntarily done these community meetings, even though they weren't required, because I always thought it was productive to the process. This one, frankly, to me, it's surrounded by so much industrial. I just thought it was a clear mistake on the zoning map that it was R1 since it had never been used that way. And so I filed the application. I've never seen one that was surrounded by so much property that was owned by the same applicant. And yes, it is still owned by Chippewa Lakes. We actually we named the railroad and the power company because we think they own some stuff in 300 feet. We know the railroad does. We're not even really sure about the power company. But to us, it's a clear case that calls for rezoning. It's not going to develop residentially. We're not trying to put something in there that doesn't comply with zoning. We're trying to fix the zoning, which I think is in error. And the city's plans call for it to be industrial. Those plans aren't old. They're very new. To me, if you don't want intermodal and other port-related ancillary businesses here, where are they going to go? And I feel like this is the right place for this type of facility to be zoned consistent with its historical use and its neighboring use. But that said, be happy to meet. And I would suggest that we can do that before this gets on the council's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Pipes. At this time, we'll close the public hearing portion and the commission will go into deliberation. The item has been recommended for approval. Any questions or comments from commissioners to staff?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that, I mean, Mr. Pipes has always been forthcoming about stuff. I don't see any reason to distrust him, and there's a whole nother layer of action after this at the city council. So, I mean, it seems to me like if he says he's going to get a hold of MEJAC and Mr. Womack, then we should be able to move on with this, because there's no reason for the planning commission, in my opinion, to hold this up. It's just not within our scope to be. It's just.
Excuse me. Yeah. If I could have the floor.
Ms. Rich?
Yeah, I wasn't done. I wasn't done yet, but I think
Sorry.
that in general, we've seen a lot of stuff like this before, and I kind of agree with the assessment that was made earlier that there are very few times whenever you have an application come up where it seems so clear cut. I see where other folks are coming from. My opinion is that we can probably move forward, and by the time it gets to city council, if they haven't met with the other folks, then there'll be a whole nother layer of accountability there.
Thank you, Matt. Ms. Rich?
Thank you. I understand what Matt is saying. However, you're asking this commission to make the recommendation. I certainly am not in favor of making it at this point until this group has the opportunity to sit down and that their duly elected council person is also with them to listen to both sides of the coin. We have often slowed things down in the planning commission stage so that there is not a recommendation. and then the meetings, it's just counterproductive. I believe the residents have highlighted the fact of this community. I don't know if they're absolutely saying it should be a housing program and be subdivided into that, but they want a seat at the table to know what the blend is, how it can be better. The I-2 that's being asked is a pretty high bar, and also there is no known use at this time. So I think that the meeting that this body could recommend should happen before a vote of this commission. And we've done this numerous times when neighborhoods have come down to say they need more information. They haven't had the opportunity to sit. And I hope that this group would be afforded the same thing. And I'm certainly listening to the applicant and their reason. I'm not saying that they're doing anything that they didn't feel was correct, but they didn't have the other side at the table. It needs to be rezoned. It's an R1. And that's a big leap and a big change. It's vacant right now, if I'm looking at the map correctly. So there is nothing there. It has potential to be planned to be something that could be more welcoming to what we know is going to be a big change in this community that they're working towards and have been very aggressively working towards it with lots of entities at the table. There's been no council person for the last number of weeks, and a new one will be coming. So again, it was also somebody who sat in that seat before, is familiar with the area. They're not a newbie and should have the opportunity to sit with their constituents and this applicant. So I hope that that's the outcome of this particular meeting at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rich. Any other comments from commissioners in deliberation? All right, again, the application has been recommended for approval. At this time, I'll call for a motion.
Move to hold over.
There's a motion on the floor to hold over item number 5.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded from Mr. Grant.
And I would ask the staff if, I guess, let's see, where are we then? Maybe the second meeting in November? Or what are those dates? I have lost track since I'll be leaving. I haven't paid attention.
November 4th or November 18th?
I would go with the 18th because the council person will only be seated on the 1st. And then that would give a little bit of time to conduct a meeting. Everyone was very willing to do so. So it would be moved to lay over to November 18th.
The motion to hold over to November 18th has been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to hold over to November 18th?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Mr. Chairman, we need a roll
The
call.
roll call, we'll move this to a roll call vote. I'll start at the bottom of the agenda attendee list. Mr. Kirk McKay is recused. Ms. Bess Rich.
For the holdover, aye.
Mr. Nick Amberger.
Opposed.
Mr. Matt Anderson.
Opposed.
Mr. Taylor Atchison.
Opposed.
Mr. Carlos Grant.
Favor of holdover.
Ms. Jennifer Denson.
Favor of the holdover.
Mr. Cameron is recused. And I am the final vote, and I am in opposition to the holdover. So the motion to hold over has failed.
We need a new motion.
We need a new motion. Entertain a
Move to approve
motion
subject to
for,
staff recommendations.
Second.
a motion to approve based on staff recommendations has been properly moved and seconded. And we'll again do a roll call vote. Mr. Kirk McTay is recused. Ms. Bess Rich,
No.
Mr. Nick Amberger,
Yes.
Mr. Matt Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor Atchison,
Yes.
Mr. Carlos Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Jennifer Denson,
Yes.
Mr. Cameron is recused, and I will also vote yes. And the motion passes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Going on that item. Moving on to item number 6, new sidewalk waiver applications. 5805 US Highway 90 West. Staff has recommended this application for waiver of a sidewalk along Highway 90 West for a approval. There is no opposition. Is the applicant available for any questions?
Yes, sir. I've admitted Steve Fisher into the meeting. Steve, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Fisher is the only one in attendance. We have no opposition.
Mr. Fisher, are you in agreement with the application for waiver of sidewalk?
Yes.
Any discussion or questions from commissioners? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion for item number 6.
Move to approve.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You supposed to be in a meeting, Peter.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Yes, sir.
Group applications. Item number 7, 664 Shelby Street. It's got a PUD component and a planning approval component. We'll take these separately. On the PUD, staff is recommended for holdover to the December 2nd meeting.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, ma'am.
the applicant has submitted a revised plan this morning. We also have Urban Forestry in attendance. We still need a holdover because we have not had adequate time to review the revised plan submitted, but staff would request that both the PUD and the planning approval be held over to the November 4th meeting.
And is the applicant with us?
Yes.
And you're in agreement with that holdover?
Yes, I think they want to look at the plans a little further. We had a little mix up with some, I don't know, it appeared that we had some crossover issues, but we don't, based on the boundary survey we provide them.
Had the issue of the encroachment and then also concerns regarding this oak to be removed. Mr. Toller has been out to the site, and I believe the revised plan is taking into account the location of the live oak in order to preserve it.
Yes.
Confirm the date, Margaret, of the holdover. It says December 2nd in this agenda, and then in a second agenda amendment you had to me was the 4th.
That's correct, because between the time the reports were posted and this morning, they provided us a revised plan.
So we're looking.
earlier today.
We're looking at a holdover to November 4th as opposed to December 2nd. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Margaret, this is just a general comment for the applicant. There is the picture's a little deceiving. There's a very, very large ditch that runs to the back of that property. Yeah. Go back to the other one. So I would just caution the applicant to make certain that they're referring to any, the current floodplain maps, just to make sure if the structure happens to be in the floodplain, that it's designed accordingly. It might be, the floodplain might all be contained in the ditch right there, but I just would ask them to draw attention to that as they move forward.
Yeah, we've looked at that, Nick, and it is especially contained in the ditch.
Okay, good, very good.
We'll entertain a motion for holdover till November 4th.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to hold over until November 4th has passed. Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item number 8, 600 Providence Park Drive East. We have a subdivision. We have a PUD. And that's all that I see. So we'll take these separately. 600 Providence Park Drive East subdivision has been recommended by staff for tentative approval, subject to 9 conditions. Ms. Pappas is the applicant with us.
Yes, sir. I have in the meeting Eric Adams, Mark Vereen, and Jerry Bird, all for the applicant. We have no opposition attending, and we have received no correspondence in concern.
Yeah, I'm here, Margaret.
Go ahead, Mr. Bird. Any comments?
Yeah.
And are you in agreement with on the subdivision, the 9 conditions for approval there?
Yes, we are. No problem.
Any comments or questions from commissioners?
I am gonna have to recuse on this one.
Thank you, Kurt. Mr. Matei is recused.
Is the Providence Park Circle, is it actually constructed yet? Can you go back to the aerial photo?
It's in design, it's in permitting right now.
Okay.
Any further comments or questions from commissioners? Again, it's been recommended on the subdivision for tentative approval. Entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion for the subdivision passes. Item B under agenda item 8, the PUD. Staff recommends approval with findings of fact and then 10 listed conditions. Mr. Bird, Mr. Adams, are y'all good with those?
I'm okay with the conditions. No problem.
Yeah, no problem, CGO.
Any comments or questions from commissioners on the PUD? We will entertain a motion.
Move to approve subject to staff recommendations with findings of fact B, C, and D.
Second.
The PUD under agenda item 8 has been properly moved and seconded with findings of fact B, C, and D. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? PUD passes. Thank you, Mr. Bird, Mr. Adams. I believe there's another person. Thank you very much. Ms. Pappas, are there any other items for this commission?
No, sir, just a reminder that your next meeting is November 4th. It will be held in person here at Government Plaza, and we look forward to seeing everyone back safe and healthy.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, just 1 second. I just wanted to give congratulations to Councilor Rich because she's been on the planning commission, representing the council longer and more probably than anybody else. And I know that it's not, I know from talking to other councilors that it's not a loved job, but she has done it dutifully, even if we don't always agree. I admire that she has so much tenacity and stick to it. So I just wanted to say that for the record, that I just want to congratulate her on wrapping up her public service and thank her.
Thank you, Matt.
Well done, Beth.
Well said, Matt.
you,
And on
Matt.
behalf of the planning commission, thank you so much, Bess, for your service. And we wish you well in your next
Thank you.
adventure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
At this time, with no further agenda items, we'll adjourn the October 21st meeting.
So much.
Oh, second.